Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm James.
And we are talking about the fourth week of Amazing Race Australia, episode
What a
10.
week.
It feels like a wow week. It does feel full of stuff. But first, if you're new to this channel, please click subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And if you want to join Patreon, watching Survivor Micronesia over there, you can join us there. But right now, James, how are you?
I'm good. It's so weird how long this season of The Amazing Race is because it's totally not at all like what a
It's so
normal
long.
season would be. And
Yeah.
I just watched the third episode of this week and I was like, okay, it's been 12 episodes. So this would have technically been like the finale episode of a standard race season.
Yes.
It's so weird to wrap my mind around.
This whole week I was like, wait a minute. Is this it? Is this the finale? It's been 12 episodes.
Do we have 4 more weeks? Like how many more weeks?
We have 4 more weeks, you guys. There are 24 legs. We are only halfway through. And I'm actually okay with this. This is great. I'm having fun. I know new teams is controversial, but if we just added new teams and it never ended, I would be okay with it. They'd be like,
well,
I trying to win something here. Ooh. Yeah. So anyway, they're not doing that. So let's dive in. Let's start at episode 10. Remember last week when I was like, oh my God, they're getting on a train and they're going to do an escape room?
Yeah, we were pretty excited about it.
We were. What happened? Amazing Race
What
team?
Escape room?
They don't even tell us the puzzle. They're like, teams had to do a puzzle to get out of their room. And then all of a sudden they're all out of their room. And I was like, did this bomb? Was this not a good challenge? What happened?
It would have been cute bonus footage if they were able to edit it, make it like an IGTV or put it up on their Twitter, something to give us a little bit more of an idea of what the teams had to do. Cause I was definitely into the idea. I was like, this is really cool. It seems like an equalizer, but it's not because everyone's trying to compete to know when they're going to leave the next day. But the moment I heard Ash and Amanda were the first team to, depart, I was like, okay, cool. I'm chill.
You're like, that's fine. That's fine. Chris told us in the Facebook group that they had what they had to do. Oh, it sounded fun. Okay, great. Well, maybe Chris will show up and tell us about it because we didn't get to see it. All right. Well, they exit their train in Coober Pedy, which I had to see it spelled because I was not quite sure what we were saying. It happens a lot. I was like, what did he? Okay, Coober Pedy. And it's so hot there that they live underground.
It doesn't seem like a place I would prefer to live, but I feel like if you grew up there, it would seem like a normal day.
Oh yeah, sure. If that's what you're used to. I mean, it would be kind of fun to live underground, but I like the city. I'm a city girl. Yeah. Off the train comes a brand new stowaway team. And they're like 4 times the size of anybody.
4 times the size. And then they completely reiterate why I would be frustrated if I was racing with this twist, because they said, oh yeah, we feel refreshed. We feel rested. They said all the things that I was like, this is why a stowaway team isn't I'm trying not to use the word fair because I know what you would say, but to me, it doesn't make any sense from a race perspective that this would happen again. The first time was one thing, whatever, but now this is the second. And I'm hearing rumors that this could be another thing in the future. That's frustrating. Especially because there's eight teams are left. 8.
Yeah. No, I definitely think a new team is a bit more refreshed than the ones who have been there since the beginning. But I personally am not threatened by bodybuilders. I know they look big, but to me, they just have more to lug around. They're not flexible. Their endurance, they might not have the cardio down. So I'm not too worried about them yet. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, I know when we saw everyone lined up at the starting line of season 32, Gary and D'Angelo were intimidating just because of how muscular they were and how built they were. But then throughout the race, like there were things that sometimes they would get tripped up on, just like any
Yeah.
other team. So it's just like, just because you got all the muscle doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to work to your favor. I mean, I've been saying about Chris and Alicia that they have been like the team that's kind of sliding on through, but coasting their way up, and they're completely underestimated. And then bam, they're going to surprise people.
Yes, they had a very interesting week, up and down. Those two. We are going to leave in order here from the train, and the new stowaway team is going to leave last. It didn't sound like they got like a big late penalty, just last.
No,
so
just last.
We're heading to a detour. We're going to go above or below. Do you want to sift a bunch of buckets, 100 buckets, I think it was, that you have to sort of load up and dump into a sifter? Or do you want to go down into an opal mine?
So I think I would totally do above. I don't think I would have done below. As adventurous as below would have sounded, I just feel like when you have to search for something, especially in the dark in a small space, you're kind of really hoping for the best of luck. Whereas you're more in control of filling up your buckets and putting it into the sifter. So I think above was the way to go.
Yeah, if you can physically do it, I mean, it is demanding. You just have to power through. But like going down in a mine might freak you out. You might get lost in the dark. You don't know if you can find the thing. Like there's a lot of variables there that you need to consider. The Gold Coast
I will
girls,
say from like the above task though, I thought it was kind of a joke that it wasn't very far that they had to run with the bucket. Like I feel like there should have been more distance between the pile and the truck where they had to dump it out. And it didn't seem like there was a far distance where, sure, you can get exhausted filling up the bucket, but you're not really running that far.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was all right there. First off, I love opals too. I was so excited that we were like dealing with so many opals. I was like, what? I didn't know where they came from or how you find them. Our Gold Coast girls, they decide to go down into the mine and they arrive there first. Chris and Alicia are right behind, coming in second, and Chris needs a nervous pee. I love that. MJ and Chelsea seem like they are third, but they're the first to arrive over at the sifting. It makes sense. MJ and Chelsea, I'm loving them. I love their energy. They're very positive, but they're fit, they're athletic. Like they can do
and they're there to
lot of
play.
stuff.
Like
Yeah.
they're there to race, but they're also there to play.
I'm so much fun in, watching them. And I love this story. I think it was MJ. I have trouble telling which one is who. MJ's parents immigrated from Croatia. And he was living in this town as an opal miner. And I was like, this is such a good story. I love this story.
Yeah, I like these little moments. Whenever you can get a little bit more of a backstory of a racer, it just, I think, opens up a window for you to have more of a personal connection to them and want to root for them.
Yeah, I was so glad that made it into the edit. And then, of course, they do really well. They're just like able to get in and out of this sifting and the buckets challenge. The only iffy thing, it seemed like they were trying to show us the teams down in the mine after they found their opal were struggling to get out, but it didn't really seem like it was actually problematic.
Yeah, it was I'm curious to know, like, I wish there was like more of a map, like a fun, like digital map that they would have put up to show the underground tunnels. But yeah, it seemed challenging for Holly and Delore. Like it seemed like the challenge itself their way out. Then
she literally was like, oh, here's a door. And he's like, no, follow me. I know where I'm going back into the cave. What?
I've got to say, I actually really enjoyed Holly and Delore this week a lot. I mean, like I've been a fan of Holly's, for a while now. Like, she's carrying the team here, but
yeah.
Delore this week, though, I think had a lot of very comedic moments. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm like being endeared to these two right now.
I mean, it's true. If you can just laugh, he's being hilarious, whether he means to or not. It's pretty funny. Okay, so yeah, besides that, there's really no other issues here with this detour. Chris and Alicia are out first and at this point, and they sort of maintain the lead for this leg. which is very fun to see. We move on to a route info, which is a mirror laser challenge. I love a mirror laser challenge.
I also like the fact that it was one of those things one team can do at a time. So it kind of really breaks up the placements a lot.
Yes. I liked that if you didn't get it, you had to get in line. And then people start getting mixed up. And the footies, this is like the one. Yes, I love it. I bet that makes you so nervous to like see the line that you get into and like, I have to get it the next time, right? This is the first thing that the footy mates like really don't excel at. They're kind of struggling here. So they time out. They have to go again. The dancers and the bodybuilders, we see them getting a bit lost. They have trouble navigating. So by the time they arrive, like there's a little bit of a line at this point. Takes the footies 3 attempts to get it. And we are left with the cousins and the couple, Holly and Dolores. So those are our last 2 teams here. They take 2 attempts each to get it, but those are sort of like filling up the back of the pack here. Our roadblock is painting the sign.
The good old painting that Cooper Petey sign.
Cooper Petey sign, which unfortunately the Sikhs thought it was a different sign. Which I was like, oh, great. They saw a sign. Fantastic. Love it.
I actually I thought it was actually kind of pretty. Like when it was all said and done, I was like, okay, visually, this is cool. And I'm curious to know if that sign is still up in the town. Like I'm wondering if it was just like, I wonder if that sign had been there for a while. And then if there's a mayor of the town, they were finally like, we got to paint it. Let's give it a paint job. And now like Amazing Race has kind of like left its touch. And hopefully it's still there.
I would imagine, wouldn't you think that the whole team was like, oh my God, or not team, sorry, the whole town is like, Amazing Race came to our town. Like that's a huge celebration. And then you would keep the sign forever to be like, in the year 2020.
Maybe they put like a plaque to like commemorate it and maybe put the name of the team for each letter that painted it and added, like contributed to it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, well, so Alicia is the first to do it, and her little toothpicky arms had to do that big paintbrush, and she's like, yellow on left, right, red on right, yellow left, red on right. She's saying it. She's so ready to do it, and then she paints yellow on right.
It's like she was overly focused on saying the words and not really like listening to what she was saying that she made that little mistake. But I mean, like luckily for her, she was able to quickly correct it.
Yes. And then she said something like, I do mix up my left and right, which so does my husband. So I was like, I feel for you, girl. I'm always like, left. It's not that hard, y'all. Your left hand makes an L. It's that easy. If you don't know this, please learn it. Left. This is it. Okay. But they're like in and out before anyone else shows up. Like they're doing just fine on this leg. The only weird thing that seems to happen is like towards the end, we've got 3 teams here. And we've got the dancers, the siblings, and then the cousins show up. And for some reason, Dwez just like starts on the wrong letter. And I'm not sure how he figured it out because is the rule, here's the question. Do they have the same rule that America has where they can't get help?
Yes. That's what I've been told.
Did who helped? Could we tell who helped? How do you figure that out?
I feel like there's a lot of things that I feel like were a little convoluted with this task and the rule. Like I feel like the rule's kind of bent. Like in a way, I can see how maybe Chris saying, babe, are you sure, to Alicia when she's painting could have been a little bit helpful, but not necessarily like giving anything away. So that's kind of teetering on the rule there, in my opinion. And then you go to like Violetta and Jordan. When they're running to the sign, Jordan says, oh, so you're going to paint the letter, was it P? Like he flat out tells her what they're going to paint. When I think the clue specified you're going to paint the next letter in the order. So that's what the roadblock recipient, I think, would have saw in the clue. So even then I was like, wait, Jordan's kind of helping Violetta by, telling her what letter she's painting. That seemed a little off to me. But again, I didn't know for sure what the rule was. But then the same thing goes with Dwez and Catherine here. Catherine's like I feel like she flat out pretty much says to him, like, you're painting it wrong, or you're painting the wrong letter.
Yeah, I mean, at least in the edit, she was like, Dwez?
You're painting the wrong one.
I wasn't sure if she said that. That's where, because like they cut away. So I was like, did she say that? Or maybe Sky Blue, who was next to him, said that. Right. But anyway, luckily, he figures it out pretty quickly and moves over to the correct letter, and then actually gets it done so quick that he passes Violetta and Sky Blue, who are still painting at this point.
Right. Yeah, and I think just to reiterate with the rule, like, obviously, if the rule had been broken to the producer's discretion, absolutely a penalty would have been rewarded. But I think that's where, from a viewer standpoint, because I know that was kind of a criticism watching season 32, is if it's not 100% like laid out for the viewer to understand, I can see how the perception is, oh, they were breaking a rule, or, oh, that seems like it's cheating. But producers are always there to make sure that those rules are being held up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do see that coming up this week in a different episode. So the siblings and the couple, so Holly and Delore, they eventually come in and they paint the rest of that last Y there at the end. But those are our last two teams that sort of leave here from the painting challenge here. So now we're going to move on to route info. It's a golf course with no grass whatsoever. It is sandy, dirty, and so windy.
Which I thought was really interesting. I'm like, this doesn't seem like a golf course I feel like avid golfers would want to go to unless they're down for a challenge because of the wind. And like the sand and the debris being flown around.
Hey, our Aussie friends, is it always this windy in this area, or was this just like a crazy day? Because, I would not want to. Well, okay, first off, I'm not a golfer. And so when Alicia was like not even hitting the ball, I was like, girl, you are me. We are one and the same. I cannot even hit the ball on a tee. I feel ya. But it was very fun to watch them like try to catch it with like basically a net, a whole net that they're holding up. So Alicia and Chris are keeping their lead. They are here. Alicia struggles at first, but like Chris has got a great catch. Fantastic. So they're in and out of this before anyone shows up here, and they're just having a fantastic leg.
Yes, they are. And I think, I saw on Alicia's Instagram, I think she said that she filmed a movie in Cooper PD. So maybe there was a little bit of confidence going into this leg, knowing maybe a familiarity to the area. I don't know. But I mean, they just seemed like this was their leg.
The footies get a hole in one. Our girls, our MJ and Chelsea are just like, cool. I just hit it. Oh, and then I just catch it. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
like incredible. They do it in their sleep. Yep.
Bodybuilders get a silly edit here. And I thought, oh, the editors love this. It's not just Delore that they're going to make fun of now. Now they can make fun of these bodybuilders too. I was like, dun, 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 while they're on the golf course. The dancers and the siblings actually end up passing the cousins here, who are still trying to hit that ball and get their hole in one. And we get down to our couple, Holly and Delore, and our cousins, Dwez and Kimberly, and Catherine. And Holly actually catches Dwez's hit. He hits the ball.
This is... I think this is like a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I like Delore's way of thinking, because the moment they showed up to this route info, he said, I'm going to try to catch, like, well, this is when he was trying to catch, but he said, I'm going to try to catch someone else's ball. And I was like, that's brilliant, because like, if you have a moment to catch someone else's ball and maybe get ahead of another team, like be a little ruthless. Like I was like, okay, Delore, I see you. And I loved that. And then of course, Holly is the one to catch it after all of that.
Of course she is, because she is very good at a lot of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad about anyone trying to catch anyone's ball because that's just playing the game. They had,
It was in
I
the
think
clue.
it was, yeah, it was in the clue. MJ or Chelsea, one of them read it to us. And so I was like, oh, somebody's going to do that since they have read it out loud to us. And I went back and I watched it a second time just to make sure, like, you know, it wasn't like Holly knocked Catherine down or anything like that. Like it really wasn't shady or dirty. The ball went Holly's way and she caught it. So they took advantage of that and they get to leave, and the cousins are going to end up leaving this challenge last. It does seem like it's a bit of a confusing drive here as people are navigating to the pit stop. So there is a moment when the Sikhs get a little lost, and this allows the Gold Coast girls to pass them.
Yeah, this is again, I know I said this in a previous recap. I would love to see timestamps to see the difference in time between the check-ins, because the whole time I'm watching the Super Sikhs talk to that local, I'm like, he clearly isn't communicating to you in a way that like you will understand where this place is, and you're wasting time at this point. And I was like, oh my, I just feel like they spent too much time asking that guy for directions and trying to understand.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how much time they lost by doing that.
I wonder. Yeah, it's really, we're not always clear on timing with these challenges and arriving pit stops. It's a little confusing at times. So our pit stop order is Chris and Alicia coming in first place. They had quite the day for themselves, the Princess and the Geek, and they won $5,000 each.
Yay!
Very fun. Good for them. This is their first win, and they had just a great day, so they deserve it.
It was coming. It was only a matter of time.
That's right. I agree. Second place is Ashley and Amanda, Gold Coast girls. Third place is the Sikhs, Jazz and Anurag. Fourth place are the Cowboys, Brendan and Jackson. Fifth place is MJ and Chelsea, our footy mates. Sixth is Stan and Wayne, our new bodybuilders, right there kind of in the middle. Seventh place is Jordan and Violetta, our dancers. Eighth is Sky Blue and Jake, our siblings. Ninth place is Holly and Delore, our couple, which I feel like this is about their average, coming in sort of almost last. Mm-hmm. And then unfortunately, 10th place, Dwez and Catherine, our Kimberly cousins, are eliminated for the second time.
First off, I'm glad that they came back. You know,
yeah.
Even though I don't like the way they came back, because they essentially skipped a leg, especially where a sabotage and a salvage were given out, and they kind of came back and didn't have to work for their spot back in the race. I'm so glad we got a little bit more airtime with them, because they really are just kind of a breath of fresh air. I mean, in particular, I loved Dwez's energy. I think that he is just so unapologetically himself, and was so appreciative of every part of this experience, and was so happy to do it with his cousin. And he just always seemed to have a smile on his face. And I just really, really appreciated that about Dwez.
I really enjoyed Dwez's energy as well. He was funny. He was like, even though he's kind of skinny and you wouldn't think he's like super athletic, but like he was always up to just do his best and power through, and let's give it our all. And so, except for that one leg last week when they both just kind of were over each other.
Hit a wall.
That was the only weird time. But like otherwise, I really enjoyed having him on television. And so sad to see him go, even though I understand they really weren't like one of the top performing teams. So I'm glad that we just got them a few extra legs.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on to episode 11. We are going to Adelaide, which is a city. I love a city. I'm excited. They're departing in their same order. And we find out that this is basically home state territory for the Footies. They
Yes.
know exactly where they are and where they're headed, and that is quite the advantage.
Yeah. I mean, even going to a stadium that they're familiar with, it was just like
Right.
this was their leg.
It totally was. When they got to the stadium and showed the photo of them, like I got chills. I was like, this is so exciting.
Yep.
Like that's legit. They were like, look at us. We came here, we won something. It was big. It was no big deal. That's our photo on the wall. Now I wish Chris and Alicia. Okay, Chris and Alicia, they get to leave first, right? They
Yeah.
won the last leg. And they're literally looking in their rear view mirror at the team that knows where they're going. And they're like, let's keep an eye on them. They lose them at a light. And I thought, I would rather be second right behind a team that knows where they're going than to keep my lead when I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah,
Like,
or in that
pull
moment,
over.
pull over sooner to make that decision. And granted, we don't know, like with how it was edited, like what the series of events was for them.
Yeah.
Other than we know they lost a lot of time. But yeah, I think it's either like you wait till another team can ultimately you can follow, or you just pull over sooner and start asking for directions.
Yeah, well, it's real, frustrating when you eventually see how much time they have lost getting
Oh my
lost
God.
on their way to this stadium. So we're going to a like major league stadium is what it looks like. They're calling it an oval, and there is everyone's team photo is hidden under a chair in some section, and you get 10-minute sections to search or 10-minute little lumps of time to search while your teammate is like at the top being a spotter with a bullhorn, but like not a real spotter because they just kind of have a vague map of like, check this section. This challenge seemed so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the communication part of it at first, I was like, oh my God, like what if the megaphone doesn't necessarily like I didn't know how like the stadium was really set up. And I was like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah.
could be really challenging. But I think it was just really communicating effectively, like what section, and then paying attention to what sections people were finding photos to really help narrow down where a section is. Because if I'm under the right impression, wasn't there one photo for each team in each section? So like once a section had a photo, it was done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I feel like you had to not only pay attention, but communicate effectively to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved this challenge. And I know Apple Slipper and the comments said that this was very much similar to season 8, Amazing Race Family Edition, because that was one of my favorite challenges from that season because it was so hard. Like they literally
Mm-hmm.
had to search under chairs of the entire stadium to find their next clue. And that's physically taxing,
It
especially going up and down
is.
the stairs.
Oh my gosh, just watching them going upstairs, you're like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
I mean, the football ladies are out first, so and they're like, "No big deal, I'll run a stadium." But then when they have to do it again, they're like, "Are you kidding me?" And then we start to see the other teams coming in and they're just like, "Whoa, this is so much running, this is so much looking." We just keep hearing no, up another section. Keep going up. They're like, I gotta keep going up. I'm tired. It's probably what they were saying. The editing here was a little confusing, and we honestly don't know if they were doing like what you're saying, like what their strategy is here. Did they have the ability to pay attention to that stuff? We don't really know, but we do know a little bit of helping does come into play because you spy in other people's pictures and you're like, what do I say? Do I say anything? I don't know. But Ashley and Amanda, they find theirs, it seems like fairly easily, probably wasn't. And they're out first. But the bodybuilders do tell MJ where they found their team photo. And he's all like, I don't feel bad about it, feel great about it. No problem on his part. And it
Yep.
actually does pay off because she comes back and tells him where his is, which I thought was interesting that she had that information, but she waited.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
she gave it to him.
It's knowing when to tell people information and when not to. And I think again, Ashley and it was Ashley. Yeah, Ashley she found Jordan and Violetta's photo, but didn't tell them. So it's really just kind of assessing what teams you're close with and who you know will reciprocate sometime down the line. And so yeah, this definitely worked in the bodybuilders' favor.
Yeah.
I will say that it makes sense because I think as stowaway teams, there's a little bit of a camaraderie between them, knowing that they are kind of at a disadvantage with the social politics of the other teams. So yeah, I think it was only natural to say, hey, I'll look out for you if you look out for me. So I was not surprised at all that the moment he said, oh, I found their photo, I was like, oh, he's going to tell them.
Yeah.
So it made sense.
I agree, Sepha. I told James that as well. It is a nice haircut that he's got.
Oh, thank you.
But so James, though, would you have told anyone if you found their photo?
Again, it kind of depends on who the team is and like what my relationship was like them at this point in the race. To be fair, if I was on this season with the stowaway twist and all these random twists that keep popping up, no, I don't think I would have told a team that I saw their photo because it's so easy to completely pass it off as like, oh, I never saw it. Like no one's going to know if you saw their photo or not. So why tell them if you don't have to?
Right. Yeah.
So
no, I doubt that I would have said anything, but I did like the way that it played out since the bodybuilders did say it. She waited till she got it. She knew she was leaving. Then she gave him that information. I was like, that at least makes sense. And then it feels like a tit for tat. And then it's a little bit, it makes more sense that way. Okay, so we're not really seeing how many attempts at this point with the editing. It did get a little just sort of muddy. Everyone's running around. But we do see that Chris and Alicia, who finally do arrive, are the last and only team there trying to get through this. Very difficult.
I know. It just, again, I think starting off the leg as rough as they did, you could tell that Alicia was just so in her head. And because she was so in her head, I feel like she's being so hard on herself. I just think it was this downward spiral for them. And they just weren't really communicating as we saw in the leg prior.
Yeah, you can definitely see Alicia starting to just get stressed, get worried, and you don't make great decisions when you're in that headspace. It's real tough. I mean, it's real tough being in the back of the pack in general because you're stressed out about this stuff. Okay, we're going to move on to a detour where we slap or we snag, and that means we're either dancing or we're eating. Okay, well, it's German. It's all like German themed. It's a town. And they're going to get dressed in lederhosen. And I don't understand everyone's choices here.
No.
The girls arrive first. We know they're not dancers. We know they don't want to do this, but I guess they just don't want to eat. And I can see that. But I was kind of surprised at how much the footies didn't realize how much food this was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I would not want to eat. It would be one of those things if I was absolutely starving, sure, but like there's no way I would want to eat. No, thank you.
No, even when you're like, yeah, I can eat. I'm hungry. You know that you're on Amazing Race. Like it's going to be an extra large plate, right? It's not like there's just a plate.
Which like, same goes with the Cowboys. Like, why did they start eating first when like you were struggling eating Weetabix? What makes you think you're going to eat a plate of wieners? Oh. Hello?
Oh, did we both, like my computer just froze. I don't even know what happened. Are you here?
Oh my God. I'm here.
Okay. I was like trying to highlight a comment and everything stopped. The world stopped.
Oh my God. I was just saying that I thought the Cowboys' decision was questionable because they had a really hard time putting down Weetabix. Like, what makes them think they're going to eat a plate of wieners? Like, come on. Like, put on a show and dance.
Exactly. Oh, and isn't that interesting that you were sitting there watching each thing? Like, so if you are struggling and want to make a change or anything like that, you got a lot more info than you usually do. They're all right there in one room.
Yep.
But yeah, Cowboys, what are you doing? Why are you doing another eating challenge?
Yeah.
I mean, first off, why can't you do an eating challenge? Because Sky Blue can do an eating challenge. This is her second one. what's going on, Cowboys, but they're sitting there and they're like, what are we doing? We can't finish this plate. Let's switch. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Why? How did you do this? So yeah, they switch over to dancing, and the upside is when Chris and Alicia finally do arrive at this point, the Cowboys are still learning. Oh, wait, we forgot to say that Chris and Alicia time out before this. My bad.
Oh, yeah. They timed
Big
out.
important thing there. The
I like
stadium closed.
the timeout thing is a little odd to me. Just because to me it seems so unfamiliar, because I don't feel like that was ever a thing on my season. But I think it makes sense, and I think it's almost kind of preferable because
Mm-hmm.
it can hold up production, like it can hold up
Mm-hmm.
teams like starting the next leg. Like I think it makes sense, and I kind of wish it was more frequent. Like you're timed out, you get a penalty.
Yeah, it helps for a viewer, I think, just so you don't have a team like if they were still at the stadium while
Then you would
everyone else was
know.
like moving through the rest of their day. Yeah, it's like, well, this is not exciting anymore. We know
That's
who's
such a
last.
good point.
Because we do see that in the US sometimes where there's just
Yep.
like this team is not moving forward in the day.
Yep.
And so yeah, I'm down with this timing out, even though I don't fully know if it was like the stadium is timed out or if Chris and Alicia personally were there too long. Like that, I'm not clear
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Because it makes me think like,
Yeah.
is the time, maybe if Steph is still watching, he can answer this, but is the timeout penalty the same as if you're just like, I can't do it? Like, I kind of feel like he wasn't
right.
happy with being timed out. They were there for 1 hour after everyone had left. Ooh. But see, that's
Well,
my
that might
question
be
is if you
just
know, like, you might
Yeah.
type out, what's wrong with just taking a penalty if it's the same amount of time? Because that way you can at least try to catch up your lead. So I'm just curious to know how this timeout. Yeah, probably not.
Well, a couple weeks ago, Chris did tell us that they just don't know what the penalties are going to be. So
yeah,
I guess you
it's
just
risky.
keep trying. Yeah. Okay, so back at our dancing and our eating. So Chris and Alicia are pulling up the rear here. The Cowboys have switched over to dancing, and so they are learning when Chris and Alicia arrive. But the Cowboys look like they did pretty well. Once they learned it, got it out of there. And we should also say that our dancers, Jordan and Violetta, slayed.
Yep, this was designed for them. Like they were totally they were in their element.
Okay, yeah, Sava is confirming, just not going to know what the penalty is.
Got it.
And changes. I mean, they end up with just a 20-minute. I mean, we'll talk about it when we get there, but it wasn't really that long of a penalty. So, yes, dancers are killing it. Chris and Alicia pulling up the rear here, and we move on to the roadblock. And it says, who's the most graceful? Now, graceful to me sounds like dance, but it definitely doesn't sound very physical, right?
No,
How do you interpret that?
Will and I talked about this. We're like, okay, like if we ripped that open and read graceful, we thought dance, and Will would have probably done the roadblock because of that alone. Those tricky roadblock clues.
It is tricky, but I feel like you could narrow it down a little bit here. So this is performing in a gospel choir, which I got so excited. I was like, oh my God, I want to do this challenge. And then they're like in Swahili. And I was like, oh boy, we have seen some doing challenges in other languages just bite people in the booty. It can be super, super difficult.
What I would like to know is if there was lyrics, like if they had the words on the podium that was there, because I feel like there were sometimes they would look down, so I didn't know if they could try to see it or if someone was holding it up. I'm very curious to know.
Yeah, I don't know, because we saw them writing down like phonetically what they needed to remember. Wasn't
like
sure.
Maybe they could put their notes onto the podium. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so MJ she's not great, but this is when I just love her energy because she's like, "What am I doing? Oh my god, I'm performing an acapella choir here. I'm gonna try." And she does get it on the second try, but poor Amanda, who we know isn't a great dancer, but boy, you really see the lack of rhythm in this challenge. Like she is just like words and syllables and words in mouth, and is this a song? And I was like, what? I felt like they were very generous giving it to her on her second attempt.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where what are you really being judged on?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the actual like word for word pronounced correctly, or is it being judged on a performance and like getting into it and just really enjoying it? Obviously, like you can't not speak and just do stuff. Like you at least have to attempt it, but putting on a show. I'm very curious to know what the judging requirements ultimately were.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm always going to say if you sell it, you probably are going to do just fine.
Yeah.
The bodybuilders are lost. They are driving around, and there comes a time when they go, "Oh, the other park." Like they just had the wrong park. They had basically left town, gone elsewhere, driving around, just looking for the wrong place.
Gotta love a good self-drive.
Yes.
Causes good drama.
Now, this is where I really think that Alicia, having such a stressful day, they make a poor decision because she is so just a ball of nerves from this day and being lost and being in the back of the pack that when they read who's the most graceful, she, I think, is just so scared that she's like, that would be you, right? What, we don't know what it could be. It could be something else. It should be you, right? And he's like, okay. When I think the word grace just tells you it's probably you, Alicia. And then as soon as they open the clue and realize it's singing, she's like, oh my gosh.
Yep. It's just that added pressure of being in the back and you're constantly going through this like whirlwind of like, I think whenever you're in last at any point on the race, you automatically jump to the worst of like, oh my God, this is it. We're going to get eliminated. I think that's your automatic reaction. And I feel like because they were always towards the back of the pack, you're right. They weren't thinking very clearly. They weren't able to really dissect that clue fully. But I think it could have gone one of two ways. Like maybe she would have done it and she could have been like, oh, this is that confidence I needed. Like, this is my roadblock. I can do it. Or because there was that pressure, she was still feeling it. She could have totally bombed it and it would have put them even back more. So it's so hard to tell if they made the right choice or not. But I agree. I think the initial choice should have been Alicia.
Yeah, I think that she was just scared to make that choice, but you're right. Like we don't know. She could have not gotten it and it could have been just as frustrating. You just never know. Well, maybe sometimes you know, but it's hard to know at this point.
Right.
Okay, so Chris does struggle at first. It does seem like he is not nailing this right away, but he gets it on his third attempt and he leaves the cowboys and the bodybuilders there because the bodybuilders eventually arrive when they realize what park they're actually supposed to go to. So those are our last couple teams here at this roadblock. Okay, let's move on to our pit stop. We got our footy mates coming in first place, MJ and Chelsea, and they get a first class pass. And so we know that they are going to get a day off and they're going to stick around and they're going to give out a salvage and a sabotage. Jordan and Violetta come in second, our dancers. They had their dance challenge and just nailed it. So they had a great day. Ashley and Amanda are third. Holly and Delore are fourth. Like this is a good leg for them. That's pretty high up. Jazz and Anurag are fifth. Sky Blue and Jake are sixth. Now, this is when Chris and Alicia show up seventh. And we learn that they've got to sit out a 20-minute penalty, which I don't think 20 minutes is that long.
It wasn't at all. But again, who knows how they determine 20 minutes. I mean, especially from reading in the chat, like Chris was apparently at the stadium for an hour.
Yeah.
And then you get a 20-minute penalty tacked onto that. Like, I don't know. Maybe it should have been longer. But with it being a non-elimination, I really don't feel like the penalty mattered.
And maybe that's why it was only 20 minutes, because it's a non-elimination. Like, producers just don't care. It doesn't matter where they come into this, is basically what they're saying. So 7th ends up being Stan and Wayne, our bodybuilders, and that's all that Chris and Alicia missed. They come in 8th. Their 20 minutes is, up, and they get to come in 8th. And that means Brendan and Jackson, our cowboys, come in 9th. So knowing that our footy mates have made a strategic decision with the salvage and the sabotage before, I was really trying to analyze to figure out what they might do. And when there was a time that the bodybuilders might have been one of the last 2 teams, I thought, well, we just saw them help each other, so they'd probably get the salvage, but then they come in high enough that it doesn't matter. Did you have thoughts on this salvage and sabotage, James?
Knowing what MJ and Chelsea did the last time they were put in this position, I think they made the right choice. And I know that's so controversial because you think, Brandon and Jackson? I always confuse the two. The Cowboys, you would assume, I think that's just the general assumption, you would assume like they might be the better team. But I've been saying for a while that Chris and Alicia are that team that when they find their stride, when they slowly start creeping their way up to the top of the pack, it's going to be when people least expect it and when it ultimately counts. And I felt like it was kind of relatable to what Will and I were feeling about Leo and Alana. Sure, like the first 2 legs, they didn't perform in the best placements, but based on us getting to know them and how they communicated and how they knew the show, sometimes the brains and the strong relationships and the bonds that people have as a teammate, it can be just as threatening, if not more threatening than what you would assume to be a stronger team. So because Chris and Alicia got a first place and the Cowboys haven't had that yet, I think MJ and Chelsea made the right choice.
The Cowboys have had a first place.
They did?
But it was early on.
So then it was to the point where Chris and Alicia, because they got a first place, they got like second, and first since MJ and Chelsea were introduced. It was like already fresh on their mind, like, okay, Chris and Alicia placed better, they're the better team. And they work so well together. So it's just kind of like, I think that they made the right choice and it made sense.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly when the Cowboys won, but I do believe it was early on, if I'm remembering correctly. So the Cowboys...
They did. It was leg 4. So that was my bad. Yeah. So they did well at the beginning.
Right. We've seen the Cowboys do really well. They can show up to a challenge, knock it out in one try, and move on. And then we've also seen them do horrible. So I don't really know what I would have done, I'm up for whatever with the sabotage and salvage, because I think everything that you said is correct. Both of these teams are really good, and then they sometimes struggle. So I think Chris and Alicia were surprised because they felt like they were close and friendly with MJ and Chelsea. But at the end of the day, we're all here racing, guys. So it doesn't really matter who you're friends with. If they see you as threatening.
Especially if MJ and Chelsea are at the top of the pack and, they've already gotten first, like 1-2 times now since being introduced into the race. If you come into the race and you see another team who's gotten first, like you automatically think they're your strongest competition. So I just think it makes sense. I like, if I was racing with Chris and Alicia, I don't think we would have sabotaged them. But I think it makes sense for MJ and Chelsea to make the decision that they did. Yeah.
And honestly, if we move on here, I don't think it really matters.
No.
So just to be official, Chris and Alicia get the sabotage. Brendan and Jackson get the salvage. Episode 12, we find out the salvage is basically like GPS. You get an iPad, Google Maps app, I guess is what you got, which does sound like a really good, helpful salvage. And then the sabotage, though, is that you can't stop and ask for directions. And that also sounds like a pretty hardcore sabotage.
Yeah, I think this is like maybe the second worst. I do think the worst is what the mums had. And I think that like that's starting off strong. You think that that's kind of what the sabotages are going to be throughout the season. But this would take a close second. Not being able to stop, not being able to like get the directions you need. It would definitely be challenging.
Mm-hmm. And I think it does sort of stress Alicia out here at the top because they're coming off a leg of being lost and needing to ask for directions. But at the end of this, it's going to be just fine. And I don't think this salvage or sabotage really affects this leg much at all.
No.
Either way.
No. I like want the sabotage and salvage twist to be like so good, but like I just need some fine tuning. It just seems a little fine.
But I also don't want the person sabotage or the team sabotage to automatically just go the next time. Like I don't want that. Either.
I completely agree with you. And that's why I think like that's what I love about the speed bump. Like sure, it's a little inconvenience, but it's a challenge that's easy to execute if you can just power through it and sometimes still get back into the race. So yeah. I just like when you go from carrying around stuffed kangaroos.
Yes.
to, now you can't ask for directions. Like carrying around kangaroos versus that, it's just laughable to me. It's just so inconsistent.
No, that was ridiculous. Please don't ever have them carrying around stuffed animals again. That was just, no. Okay.
Silly.
Let's go to Port Lincoln, y'all. Port Lincoln is a place in Australia, and we're going to have a detour here. Toss or roll. You're going to throw, it's a fish, but like it's a fake fish, and it's fairly heavy, it seems like. You're throwing it into 3 different circles, or you're playing bocce. James, I love bocce. This is something you need to know about me. I love bocce. I'm really good at bocce. 100%, except that I also understand that there is strategy and skill needed for bocce. So I might not have, just because having to win 10 games against people who are like professionals or who play it regularly, that's
especially
really
on their
challenging.
terrain. Like it's their turf. Like they're familiar with like the ground and how to maneuver it with the ball toss. Yeah.
So I would have wanted to pick it, but I might not have, just because I understand this is hard. So the Sikhs, they get to the toss first, and our couple, Holly and Delore, they get to bocce first. And we kind of see that the tossing, for the most part, was the easier one to do. A little more straightforward, just kind of maybe like a little learning curve, but you get it.
Yes. But I think maybe the same thing could be said about the tuna toss. Yeah. Like, cause you just learn that from what it looked like, they had to spin a total or a minimum of 3 times.
Yes.
Because at first, I don't know which Super Sikh did this, but like spun so slowly 3 times and then gently tossed the tuna into the first ring. So I feel like you just have to kind of do what's comfortable for you. Where I saw some teams going all out with all 3 spins and then tossing, where I'm like, what if you just gently spin 3 times and then hurl it? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like there was a little bit of like you said, learning curve, but also I think strategy to how you executed it.
Yeah, agreed. But so everyone is getting it except for our Gold Coast girls. They really do struggle, and maybe it was because the fish is so heavy. It's like 22 pounds, apparently, is what Ellen's telling us. Like
it's like you don't just
hard to throw.
Yeah, you're familiar with tossing a ball, but like you're not familiar with tossing a tuna.
No. So they actually do struggle to the point that they switch detours and they got to go now play bocce. And by the time they take us back to bocce, they're so piled up with these scarves that I was rolling on the floor laughing. That was so funny to see. What a great visual.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then watching Chris and Alicia step up to Bocce and just like nail it was so sexy to me. I was like, yes, get it. They got the strategy and they were like, oh, are we already leaving while you guys are still here playing Bocce? Our bad. Bye.
Maybe it was that added pressure of the sabotage, knowing like, oh, we can't get direction, so we really just need to like power through it.
Yes. I loved it. That was so great. So most people are out, and it leaves us with just our Gold Coast girls and our couple there at the bocce, sort of struggling together. And then they tell us that they basically finish at the same time at this point. Now we're moving on to something called an intersection. What?
Yes, I loved it. I love intersections. I wish it was more often. Like I wish every season of the race would do an intersection, just because it's fun to see the thought process between teams and like what they're thinking as to who they should team up with. I love the intersection.
But I don't know that it played out very excitingly here, though.
No, it didn't. Like at first when the Super Seeks showed up to it and they were literally going through every single team, weighing out the pros and cons, I was like, yes, yes, I loved that. Brilliant. And then the moment the first team showed up, they were like, oh yeah, should we just, it's like all of that thought power you had, that thinking power of what you were going to do, it just like kind of went out the window.
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing. I mean, I feel like it was an awkward moment because you're like, what do we do? Because the Cowboys are like, do you want to work with us? And I think the Sikhs just didn't really want to say no. So they were like, well, let's talk it out. Mm-hmm. Okay. I feel like you and Will would have been a little bit more direct and said like, no,
we're not working with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it totally depends on the team. It totally depends.
Yeah.
Because there are pros and cons to every single team. And it's just like you might, maybe the team like you're not getting along with the most on the race or like is your biggest threat could absolutely be your benefit, their biggest benefit in an intersection. So it totally depends on what the task is. But what I'm curious, and it's been so long with the intersection, I'm curious. So because the Super Seeks were there first, did they have the benefit of still being able to sign up first? Because let's say that they said no, and then the Cowboys were second. So now the Cowboys are waiting around. I forget who was the third team. Was it Sky Blue and Jake? I think. Mm-hmm. If they showed up and they also said no, and then Jordan and Violetta showed up and Sky Blue and Jake said yes, like we already knew we wanted to work with Jordan and Violetta, were they able to sign up first? Or did they have to wait for the Super Seeks to make the decision? Like I'm not familiar of how that works.
Yes, I don't know that answer either, but that actually makes sense. Because I was thinking the Sikhs really wanted to work with the Gold Coast girls, which everyone should have wanted to do that. And it would have been awesome because the Gold Coast girls are basically pulling up the rear here. It would have been awesome if the Sikhs were like waiting for them. They show up and they're like, hey, you want to come with us in first place? Like that would have been amazing. But if you're waiting for them and then Sky Blue or the siblings and the dancers, they decide to pair up, I bet they would get to bump up to first place because you're basically agreeing.
If I'm not mistaken, I feel like the last time I saw it on the US season, if like let's say Will and I show up to an intersection and then like Leo and Alana show up and we're like no, and then Haley and Kaylin showed up and then Leo and Alana and Haley and Kaylin are like yes, they can continue their race. So it's kind of like a disadvantage to choose who you want to work with. But I think what made it different was there was that sign up board. So it's like you don't want to not be in the first batch. So of course, I think the Super Seeks had no other choice but to work with the Cowboys at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I would only be willing to wait like one more team. I would maybe be like, let's see who comes next.
Yep.
And then if I saw it with Sky Blue and Jake, I'd be like, I'm going to take Sky Blue and Jake. But I probably wouldn't have been brave enough to wait that many more legs, not knowing. I don't know. Anyway, so I was just a little disappointed that it was like, oh, basically 1 and 2 went together, 3 and 4 went together. But now 3 and 4, Sky Blue and Jake, they did say they wanted to work with Jordan and Violetta. And so they were all happy. That's our first vote.
going back to episode 2, we got that
Yeah.
little clip of Sky Blue and Jake and Jordan and Violetta being like, want to make an alliance? Like, we work well together. We like each other, even though it really never played out to like the extent I thought it would.
Yeah.
But good to know, Stepha. So that kind of goes back to what I was just saying, that like if 2 teams form, they can continue to race. So that makes sense.
It does. So then as team number 1, I'm just pressured into taking team number 2 just so I can get up on the board.
Yep.
But that's the downside of that. Okay, so that's our boat 1. And then boat 2, we see Chris and Alicia show up and the bodybuilders show up, and they seem to like get along and were very fine and excited to work together. Like, sure, yeah, you guys are strong. Let's do this. And then the girls end up coming in with Delore and Holly, and this is hilarious when they're like, oh, Holly and Delore don't even work well as a team together themselves.
Yeah, so adding them to our team,
not ideal. Wouldn't be our first choice, basically, is what they're saying. So the next day, Delore, though, is super stoked. This is a dream come true. He gets to work with these girls. He thinks this is going to be amazing. And guess what? It is for him. Boat 1 goes out. They seem like they've all communicated. They are all preparing. They've just divided up what they're going to do. And they do it, but completely wrong. Then by the time boat 2 shows up, I mean, thank goodness for Ashley and Amanda. Basically, they totally understand what's going on. They slay it, just absolutely killing it, while Delore is screaming about sea lions.
God, it was so funny.
Yes.
Again, this is when I was like, I can't believe I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, I'm enjoying Delore. I mean, I was enjoying it. I thought it was so funny.
It was funny. I mean, first off, sea lions just like hanging out with you like that, that's not something like, we have sea lions here in California, but they don't hang out with you. So the fact that they were like, hey, what are you guys doing under here with this chain? You want to play? You want to like hang out? That was adorable. And then Delore's like, oh my God, they're going to murder me.
And then it was really Holly. It wasn't the feeling.
That was so great. But so this boat 2 just basically takes over the lead because they do it correctly. Those 2 teams head on out, get on the boat first, and then that boat heads back first. So boat 1 now figures out what they did wrong, and now they have to do it.
But yay, Gold Coast girls!
Yes, absolutely. This sand dunes challenge that they go to next was wild. How that seems so hard.
Yeah,
and really
it's like
fun to watch.
It was probably like being designed, okay, blindfolded. That doesn't seem hard enough. Let's make them run backwards.
In sand? That's so hard. I loved it.
With these chunky boots? Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Wait, what did they call these boots? I forget what they're called, but we call them wellies. They're big old wellies. And they're walking backwards and blindfolded, and they have their flags. So they have 5 and they don't know which one's which. So like your partner on the walkie's like, this one, nope. Next one, nope. Yep, this one. Put that one in the bucket. They're all like stumbling over themselves and each other. And it was very, very fun to watch, especially Delore, who can't walk on sand. I mean, why would he walk on sand? Well,
it was also funny to see how many people would kind of be very like, I don't know if gentle is the right word, but they were very cautious about taking those steps back, where in my brain, I'm like, it's sand. It's like if you fall, like you're on a dune. So if you fall back, you're going to fall onto sand. Like I think Amanda was kind of a powerhouse, that she was just kind of, she had great momentum. She was constantly moving. So it seemed like she kind of, maybe, I don't know, maybe she was thinking that same thing of like, okay, if I fall, I fall. But like, I'm going to try to get this over with.
Yeah, maybe they were just being cautious because they did want to like miss the bucket or miss a direction. If it was like, I'm just going to go slow and steady to here. I don't know, but I loved Ashley and Amanda's communication, and Amanda just like powering through. It was really fun to watch them just like fly up the hill, basically, and put all those flags in. Chris and Alicia, this is when we see a producer step in and tell us something has been done incorrectly. Chris and Alicia, first off, your partner has to run all the way up to meet you there. And then the producer steps in to say, you didn't actually get your flag in one of those buckets. You got to go back. Oh my God, starting over with this would have been really frustrating. And they definitely were struggling. Alicia couldn't even see Chris at times. I don't know why it was so hard, but he eventually gets the flag fixed in the bucket. And we don't really see a lot here, James, on what really tripped up the dancers, but we're just kind of eventually shown that the dancers are the last ones there.
Yeah. They just weren't, I don't know. I really don't know like what happened to them, especially because they had such a strong leg prior.
Yeah. Oh my God.
This leg, it just like for some reason they got lost a little bit. They for some reason took a wrong turn, or I don't know. But yeah, they lost a lot of time.
Yeah. So they're just last on the sand, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I guess they're the last team to arrive. So our pit stop is Amanda and Ashley, Gold Coast girls. They come in first place. They have won a trip. And I think this is their third leg win. I think this is their third. That's really impressive. Holly and Delore, they come in second place, and they should really be thanking Ashley and Amanda. This is the highest they've ever finished, and it's because of their partners.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Third place is Stan and Wayne, our bodybuilders. And fourth place is Brendan and Jackson, our cowboys. Fifth place is Jazz and Anurag, the Super Sikhs. Sixth place is Chris and Alicia. Seventh is Sky Blue and Jake. And then eighth place is our dancers, Jordan and Violetta, and they are eliminated.
Now we're still down to 7 teams.
Oh. And you're like, and we still have a ton of teams.
So many teams. Unbelievable.
It's very sad to see the dancers go, especially after they came.
8 teams. Sorry, Maddie.
No, they came in 8th, so they're gone.
No,
so
but I forgot about MJ and Chelsea because they had that fast pass.
Oh, thank you. I forgot about them too. 8 teams are left. That's right. It's a real bummer to have such a great leg and then get eliminated. Really tough to see. But they hadn't really shown us, they weren't running at the top of the pack, the dancers, unfortunately. So I think even though we still have 8 teams left, it is that time where teams that are pretty good are going to start to go.
Yeah.
That's just the time that we're at. So,
yeah.
And also, I was like, is Jordan going to propose at this point? Like, why are they not a couple?
Yeah, I'm very curious. Like, look, I get if you want to put X's as their label for like dramatic purposes, but then there's no follow up. Maybe it's because they didn't argue like they were thinking X's would, but
yeah,
like you never really dove into their background as exes. So like you could have easily put best friends and it wouldn't have made a difference. Like I didn't know why were they called exes? Because as a viewer out the whole time, like when I were watching them, like they're super cute and they're super sweet, but we're like, I'm not getting the whole exes thing. Like I don't get it. Like they should either be exes. They work well together, or like why are they not? They should just be best friends. I don't get the exes label.
Well, they're dance partners, right? Or at least they have been dance partners at some point.
Yeah.
Because the exes, they dated in high school. Like you don't have to count your high school relationships. Like that feels like it was a while ago. Maybe it wasn't that long ago. They seem kind of young. I don't know. But I was like, no. They're not exes. You're right. They're not fighting like that, but they have some amazing chemistry, and Jordan will just bend over backwards for her and do anything for her. And I just don't know why they haven't just sealed that deal and gotten married. What's the holdup, guys?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're soulmates.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for coming to Dating with Sarah. That is that's what I saw that because I wondered if she had done any Dancing with the Stars, and she did do that on for Australia. But anyway, so that is the team that we lost. But like we said earlier in this video, we still have 4 more weeks of this show. So I think we will have another
We're committed.
stowaway.
We're
We are
halfway
committed.
through. We're halfway through.
We're halfway through. I'm still loving it. I know it's controversial, but send me more teams. And then eliminate like 3 in one leg or something like that.
It's weird to think, okay, 8 teams are left. If this is Tar US, that would be like episode 4. This is episode 12.
Yep.
It's just a little weird. It's crazy.
It is. It's a little weird.
We're along for the journey.
We are. Can you make any predictions? Do you think, have your thoughts changed now with new stowaway teams?
I still hate the stowaway twist. I probably will hate it even more if one of them win. Granted, if they make it to the end, that's the rules. They deserved it. They did it.
Yep.
But I'm not rooting for them to win because they are stowaways. But they're great people. I love MJ and Chelsea. I enjoy their dynamic and what they bring to the race. Obviously, Stan and Wayne are a little bit newer, so we're slowly getting to know them more. But of all the teams left, I'm rooting for the non-stowaway. I'm rooting for the OGs, the starting line crew. And I still feel like Chris and Chris and Alicia, I think that they have I still have hope for them. There's something about them where I'm like, I think that they're going to continue to surprise people. I think Ashley and Amanda, I feel very strongly that Ashley and Amanda make top 3. I think they're a top 3 team. They've been consistent the entire time. Holly and Delore, I don't think have much life left in them. No, I think that they could go next week, maybe, in one of the next 3 episodes. I think the Super Seeks are strong. Same with Brendan and Jackson. Sky Blue and Jake are kind of like Jordan and Violetta, where they kind of keep staying towards the back with the same average placements. Yeah. So I don't know, but they help other teams so much that like maybe that's part of the edit. Maybe they cross the finish line first and it's like all the good karma paid off. Who knows? Who knows?
Right.
But I feel very strong about Ashley and Amanda and Alicia and Chris right now. Those are my 2 teams I'm watching.
Stefa, are you a stowaway? Are you going to come back and then be a non-eliminated? I'm on board for that.
Look, I love Jess and Stefa, obviously. Yes. But if they come back as a stowaway team, I still won't like it.
Oh, no.
I still won't like it because I don't like the twist. And here's another thing I was thinking about. Like, you have to be strategic about who does what roadblock because like there's a cap off at some point. If you're a stowaway team that comes in like halfway through, 3/4 of the way through, you don't really have to worry about who does what roadblock. So that also seems like a disadvantage to the other teams. So I don't know. Obviously, I would love to see Sefa and Jess on TV again. They're incredible. Yes. I loved what they brought to the race. I think the entertainment value has faltered a little bit because they are gone.
100%. Sefa and Jess, get your own show. What show do you want? Let's get your own
But I almost want to be
show.
like, please don't come back as a stowaway team and please come back at All Stars. That seems so much more appropriate. So much more appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. All Stars for sure. I am hardcore rooting for MJ and Chelsea. So I have to break your little stowaway thing for them because they just make me so happy. They are such like badass women. They're
100%.
so good at this. And I hate that they weren't cast originally. You know, I hate that they
agree.
From the get-go. Yep. That's a real bummer. So I'm rooting for them. But like Chris and Alicia, they're here to play. Gold Coast Girls, hello. So good. And they should definitely be top 3. Who else do I love? I also love, I really love Sky Blue and Jake, but they have not gotten up there. Like they need to show us that they can get up there. I'm worried about them.
Yeah.
The Cowboys, like we've said, are just like hit or miss. So I just never know with them. And same thing with the Sikhs. Like the Sikhs are really, really strong. And then sometimes they fall back. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see how we ever get out of these 8 teams.
I know. And I'm just really, 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 really hoping there's not another stowaway team, please, Lord. Please,
well, if
no
there's
more.
not another stowaway, there's going to be more non-eliminations because that's just how the numbers add up.
Truth.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us live in the chat. We appreciate it. Apple, we're so sorry that this is the last one you can join, but enjoy uni. Did I sound official when I said uni? Enjoy uni. We will be back next Thursday, same time, same place. Meet us here for next week's. And I guess we'll be back for the next 4 weeks because that's what we got left here, you guys.
Here we go.
Yay! Tell us if you are joining us later. If you didn't make the live, please tell us in a comment all of your thoughts about this top 8, as final 8, these stowaways, the teams we've lost, the teams you loved. Give us all your thoughts. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.